Hi everyone, I'm Frank Creede. I'm the CTO of Pacific Data Vision. We go by PDV because it's a lot easier to say. I grew up in the US, so I didn't learn proper English. So I didn't know what coalface was. I had to go look it up. But I figured it out, and Tim gave an apt description. So I'm going to first give you an idea of what we do, and with that, maybe you'll understand a little bit better our experience with over-the-top applications and APIs and how they all fit together. We started out interfacing to push-to-talk. Two of our key members of our team are Morgan O'Brien and Brian McCauley, the two founders of Nextel. And I think they had 22 million subscribers before they were sold to Sprint. We focus on the enterprise marketplace. So I know we all hear about APIs and over-the-top applications, and we think about Facebook and consumer. We sell a service that's $20 a month. It's sold to companies like waste companies, cable TV technicians, utilities, liquor distributors. All of them expect high availability, high reliability, and in fact, one of our customers is Cablevision. If there's even a small delay in the performance of our service, we'll get a call from their care team, because the way they use our service, they know within 20 seconds if there happens to be a delay. So, and we're a little unique. We have some servers, some clouds, and we also use carrier APIs and over-the-top applications. So, to get you in perspective, I'm going to talk about rubbish. Now, in the US, we might call it garbage. Now, that looks like pretty messy, a pretty big mess to some of you. To our customers, it's money, because the capture of that photograph with a date and time stamp and a location is what they use to provide to their customers to go out and say, hey, there's 3 yards of extra trash. I want to bill for that. So in another case, a car blocking access where they can't complete service. That obviously means that the vehicle, the truck is sitting out there. In the waste industry, they have haul or call. You either have to haul the waste away or you have to call someone and call a customer. So in this case, blocked access means they can't complete service. You have a truck sitting there idling trying to get a resolution. In both of those cases, we help our customers either generate revenue or prevent a go-back expense. So if you see charging $20 a month, it's to the right of the decimal point. It sounds like a lot to us as consumers, but to enterprises, they make thousands of dollars a month in each office being able to charge for things like this. So we help them document field events and bring them into the office quickly. So I want to talk about some of the interfaces that we have. We've connected to 5 different location platforms, 3 different SMS and MMS interfaces, 2 speech-to-text APIs. If you have a relationship with carriers like we do, we get provisioning interfaces as well as back-office interfaces. Uniquely, we've connected to push-to-talk networks, which I don't know that there's a lot of people that have done that. And we have SIP trunks. We actually implemented OMA-POC, which wasn't very well received in the marketplace, but we have that as a solution in our toolbox. And we use mapping providers, because everyone who's getting location wants to put that on a map, and inevitably they want to do reverse geocoding. They want to get an address. And at some point we need to do number portability. We want to know which carrier our customer's on. So I'm going to talk about, from our perspective, what we thought between over-the-top versus APIs. Network APIs are nice in that I can sign up an enterprise customer and I can start querying thousands of units, their devices on their network, whether they're tablets or phones, with little or no user involvement. They don't have to download an app. They don't have to do anything. And especially when you're going into blue-collar space, sometimes English is a second language, instructing and training people on how to use an application and download it. In fact, one of our customers with several thousand units said, If I have to do anything that requires me to retrieve devices from the field or do training of any of my users, I'm completely uninterested in it. So doing anything that requires a lot of user interaction in some cases is not attractive. Just being able to find your workers quickly and easily. We still have a fair mix of feature phones. Why is it? If someone's driving a large vehicle, they don't always want them having a smartphone. If smartphones can be locked down so that they don't interoperate with the user while the vehicle's moving, in the U.S. there's significant fines, upwards of $2,000 for using your phone while a commercial vehicle's moving. So driver distraction, the companies don't want to be responsible for someone watching videos while they're driving a truck. One of the things that we found was a huge challenge is by all the laws, the rules the carriers put in place, consumers can easily opt out. They can opt out to SMS, they can opt out to location. You may be sending a notification out to the customers saying, hey, we're locating you every month. That, in many of our enterprise use cases, they're completely uninterested in the user opting out. They should have it's a company provided phone. They don't want the user to have any ability to opt out. But obviously with the network API, the carrier can generate revenue. In our case, we have situations where we have both rev shares or wholesale pricing through the carrier, so that means the carrier sells and bills it. And most importantly, their salespeople get paid to sell it, which to me is critical to be successful. With the over-top application, once someone's downloaded the app, you know a lot more about them. You somehow have enticed them to go to your site and download the app. In our case, we can get a little bit better performance, and it's not always 100% true, and it depends on the device, of course. But users can typically opt out, even if you have an application that automatically starts up. We've seen, especially on Android, that you can spoof location. Someone will figure out how to go into settings and kill an application. A lot of times you just don't want them to do it, especially if you're trying to track them to find the closest worker for the next service visit. But the other big positive for a developer is once you do that over-top application, you can sell it maybe in all countries all around the world. And in our case, we use a combination of the two. We use, in some cases, both network location and over-the-top location. We found that in cases like when you have feature phones, network location's great. And it really, some of it's just device dependent. Some devices perform better than others. And same with SMS and MMS. And we've used both the AT&T speech-to-text as well as a couple of, speech-to-text that comes out of the phone that you can get with either iPhone or with Android, as well as with Google. And we haven't really utilized any in-app client-side APIs. Most of ours are all controlled through the server. So our perspective is, it's nice to have standards, but we figure if there's a competent development team, it really isn't rocket scientists to do this connectivity. But we have seen all ends of it. We've connected to very simple, web services as well as things that are very complicated that take many months and developments with SIP-like connectivity. So we've had both sides of it, and they're different animals. But I don't think we don't see that as a huge barrier. It makes it very easy to deploy. If you had to go and deploy across a lot of operators and you want to do it quickly, I can tell you the second or third time we connected to a location server, it was far easier. In fact, too easy. Whenever your development team says it's going to take weeks to do that and they have it done in days, you know that it was almost exactly like what they had just done before. So I have another provocative topic is, we always talk about open, but if it's so easy, everyone's going to get in there. Well, you want the ones that are going to generate revenue or be popular with your customers. But, to what extent do you want to deploy carrier resources and support in particular for, one and two man shops who have no users and really have a poorly thought out business plan? That's something for you for debate further. I don't know that I have all the answers on that. I have a perspective on it, which I'll go into a little later. So, whenever we're thinking about the wireless network, the data network, and the voice network, we think of it as carrier grade, and the standards that are set there as far as availability and reliability are pretty substantial. But when you get to an API platform, my question to everyone here is, does everyone follow the same standard? And my perspective is maybe not so much. And some of this has to do with, I think, revenue. If you're earning money from something, I think it makes it a lot easier to go out and put resources on it. Everyone's looking for that business case to justify whatever expense is going to be there. For instance, what's the availability of the web portal and the development site? And do you give notifications for planned maintenance and outages to your developers? If they're out selling apps, in a highly available market, and their customers are counting on that, it's got to be running all the time. And do you have monitoring, or do you wait for someone like us to call you up and say, hey, there's an outage, or something not working, or it's slow? And then a successful result, the qualitative aspect is important. So let's say there's a location platform I can locate. We were getting 9,999 meters on some location results, and if you had a nice little trail of breadcrumbs and all of a sudden there was a dot way up here, we just said, well, we're going to throw that out because it looks poor in our application and it provides something that doesn't really sell well. Customers say, why was I out in the ocean? I wasn't over there. So just because you have a location platform or you can send SMS or MMS out, that's good, but does it work? So that's the other aspect, the qualitative aspect. You can't just have it, it's got to be good. So I mentioned how you start off. Everyone starts off saying, hey, we have this great developer platform and we provide escalation process, and yeah, we do get outage and maintenance notifications from some operators. But if we go and report something and it has to go into a queue and it's 24-hour turnaround when I have enterprise customers that are down, and there really isn't a P1 to P4 severity level, and how do they differentiate my request from a request from that one guy in a garage? Those are key questions that have to be answered because after a while, once you've gone through any kind of outage situation, you save all the contacts you've got. And eventually you stop going through the general portal. You go through the general portal, open up a ticket, and then you immediately go around and start calling all the people you know. And then going along this same line, I mean, it's with one carrier, they have or more than one, they have fixed agent agreements where there's precise escalation procedures. If you call anyone without a ticket open and you don't follow those procedures, you're going to get a cold shoulder very quickly. And one other thing was very interesting to us is that even when we have problems and we call to report them, the ability for the carrier to identify a problem, they ask us to capture logs. And sometimes those logs are in SSL and they're encrypted. The ability to filter on one vendor's traffic, in our experience, has not been great. So I think PDV, we're one of the canaries in the coal mine. We often discover these impairments, and then they said, oh, we have other people reporting that too. Thanks for mentioning it. So as I mentioned earlier, we capture logs and send them to them to make them aware of what's going on. And even when we're up and running, we would go and look at our results, and over time, look at our success rate. Look at how many we report on our location results in several buckets. How many are less than 50 meters? How many are less than from 50 meters to 250 meters? And how many are over that? Because it's kind of a gauge on how we're doing with our customers. The point about an API is if you can't count on it, then how good is it? How can you sell a service if it only works 75% of the time? So you have to ask yourself, is there a way to get to 90% or 95% success rate? I mean, phones are going to be off. We all know that. You're not going to be able to locate them or communicate with them. But if you went and said and looked at your own results, for instance, if you were trying to locate an iPhone 5, in some places you can't locate it. You can locate an iPhone 4, you can locate Android phones, but you can't locate an iPhone 5. That's a big problem. So we talked about devices and device dependent. The other aspect is we often find that we will be able to go and find one person who knows something about one piece, but often there's vendors behind them and there's support teams behind them. And I know everyone's trying to drive costs down, but from our perspective, when we have to go through one gentleman who knows a little bit, but he doesn't know everything, and then we have to bring in other people, these things all take time. And then at some point, there's a call overseas. And it's frustrating. One of my favorite errors was we found that 1 out of any, say 10 times we were getting a failure, and it was infrequent. It turned out that the operator had multiple servers that weren't all synchronized, so they hadn't all been updated. And whether it was a provisioning record or location consent, they weren't all up to date. And so we ended up having to identify the issue. They were completely unaware of it and got it all scored away. But, when they ask me, are we still having a problem, I don't know that I should be the one to be answering that question. So from our perspective, we think monitoring's got to be part of an API platform, and it's, in addition, you need quantitative and qualitative assessments. I don't think when you build it, you're done. You got to build it, measure it, manage it, and make sure that you're continuing to look at some of the problems that are coming up, not after it's been launched, but 6 months, a year down the road. And with each new wave of devices coming out, you have to go and look at them as well. Obviously, we need notifications. We won't spend time trying to troubleshoot things. We'll notify our customers that there's an outage so that they're not waiting and if someone's on it, they're working it. Logging things down to a vendor, validating who's got a fault is important. And I think there's just simply got to be an attitude that these APIs and the services offered by the carrier are just as reliable as the voice and data services you're providing. Traffic throttling, that was something we ran into once, where if we had a fleet customer who wanted to notify 100 users, they're truck drivers, that there's a ice on one of the roads, or you got to hit your blood pressure checked by the end of the month, or some other, we want to send all those messages out at once. Yeah, we can throttle it. We can send them out 10 a second, 5 a second. But when someone tells us you're throttled to 10 a second, and we're seeing failures down to 2 a second, and so we're just dribbling them out. I mean, I don't want to be the one to tell you that your throttling doesn't work. You should know that it doesn't work. And I don't think we're ever going to change, the outsourcing models that are going on, but it's been a challenge for us. So I think domain experts who know everything about the system and have authority to make quick decisions and provide information that can provide, quick problem resolution would be great. And one thing that's the core of everything we've built, because we've done this for a long time, we made something we call round trip test. And what it does is it uses an end user experience from, in our case, message creation all the way around to where it ends up being viewed. And the reason why we did that is we use our own product with a piece of test software that's running in the background at very low frequency, and it lets me sleep at night to know that even if I see that there's an outage somewhere, or if I'm wondering if there's an outage, I know that I'm going to get notified immediately if that round-trip test fails. But it's kind of something that runs all the time, and it gives you a ability to know and not wait for your customers to tell you you have an outage. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you.